Okay, so we just saw two girls with their chemistry set. They poured in two liquids and then they went and got one more and they added them in. And then it looked like they were starting to pour the liquid into a flask. So they had this big cylinder that they added everything into at first, and then they had a flask with a fill line that we don't know exactly how much that was, but it had a fill line for it. So that means like where they're going to fill that flask to. They were pouring that liquid in. So what I want you to think about is, what did you notice? Did you notice any measurements? Did you notice anything that might help you make sense of this math story? What questions do you have? And which of those questions could be solved using math? And I want you to take a moment, pause the video, and write down what questions you have on your recording sheet or in your math notebook. And then when you're ready, when you have some questions, at least one, maybe two questions written down, you can press play again, and we'll move on to Act 2. Okay, so hopefully you got a chance to write down some of your questions and think, which ones could we maybe solve with math? Now here's the actual main question. Here's what we're trying to figure out from this story. How much liquid will be left in the cylinder after filling the flask to the fill line? So you can go back and watch the video again if you need to, but I want you to try to make a prediction. So they're measuring in milliliters. You can go back and look at the video and see some of the markings on the cylinders or the flask, but just make a guess. And if you don't know anything about milliliters or the measure of volume, that's okay. Just do your best. And then your next job is going to be to think to yourself, well, okay, if I'm trying to figure out how much liquid will be left in the cylinder after filling the flask to the fill line, what information do I need to solve that? What information do I need to answer that? So I want you to press pause, make your prediction if you can, write down what you think you need to solve that, and when you're ready, press play again, and I'll give you some information that you need. Okay, so hopefully you've thought about what information you need, and you've made a little prediction if you can. And now I'm going to give you a little bit more information. So remember, our main question is, how much liquid will be left in the cylinder after filling the flask to the fill line? Well, let's take a look. We know we're going to need how much liquid was put into the cylinder, right? We're going to need to know that. And they added 3 different liquids, a blue one and then 2 yellowish ones. So we're going to need to know how much was in each of those. And we're also going to need to know, well, what is the fill line? How much are they actually pouring out? So let's get some of that information. Here's our original mixture. Here are the first 2 liquids that they poured into the big cylinder. We've got this tall, small cylinder of a blue liquid, and it's again measured in milliliters. And so I'm looking, I see the numbers 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on, but I'm also seeing little tick marks in between those numbers, and I'm going to count to see, because it kind of looks like there should be 10 in between, because we're skip counting by tens, and let's just make sure. So I'm going to use 70 because I can see it really clearly. 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80. Okay, great. So each of those little tick marks represents 1. So let's look at where the blue mixture, the blue water, blue liquid goes up to. We can't assume it's water. It's a little bit above 90. It looks like there's 1 tick mark, 2 tick marks, so that would be 92 milliliters for that blue liquid. So you're going to need that information, so jot it down on your recording sheet. 92 milliliters of blue. Okay? And milliliters can be abbreviated ml. You can see that on the cylinder there. Our second liquid was this yellowish one, and I'm seeing it's in this beaker, another science tool, and it's showing me some tick marks, but I'm seeing markings on 50, 100, 150, 200, 250. So I'm seeing that this yellowish liquid is matched up pretty perfectly with 250. So second liquid, 250 milliliters. Okay, so we know how much they poured in at first. And then we know she went and got another liquid and added it in. Well, here we go. Here's that third liquid that she added in. And again, we're using this same beaker with the 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, but the liquid is kind of right in between 200 and 250. So we need to figure out what intervals we're counting by to know what that tick mark actually means. Well, so I'm thinking, okay, they're each halfway between, it's like 200 and then halfway and then 250, 100, halfway, 150. I'm trying to think of what intervals would be like halfway between 50 and 0, because I have 0 ones and then I have 50 ones. And I know from my knowledge of money that, well, 25 is half of 50. So it looks like these tick marks are skip counting by 25. So 25, 50, 75, 100. 125, 150, 175, 200, 225, and then 250. So it looks like this third liquid is 225 milliliters. So make note of that on your paper because you're going to need it. Those were the 3 liquids they added. We had 92 of the blue, 250 of the yellow one, the second one, and then 225 of this third one, this kind of clearish one. The last piece of information we need is, well, we know how much the total mixture was, but she's pouring some out, and we want to find out what's left. But in order to do that, we're going to need to find out, well, what did they pour out? What is that fill line? And here we go. We have the big cylinder, that's where their whole mixture went, and then we've got the flask, and they've got the fill line here marked in black marker. They're going to be filling it to 500 milliliters. So out of that whole big mixture, they're going to be pouring out 500 milliliters of it. So we have all the information we need now. All you need to do now is create a model or an equation that will help you solve this. Now remember, 92 milliliters of blue, 250 of yellow, 225 of that third liquid, and they're pouring out 500 milliliters. And I'll have this information up on the next slide where you can pause. So while you do your work, you can pause it on that next slide, and you'll see that information presented for you in case you didn't get a chance to write it down. So go ahead and pause the video when you're ready and work on solving, and then I will share with you the solution. Okay, here we are in Act 3. So they showed us what was actually going on in this video. We saw the girl pour in 250 milliliters of that yellowish liquid and then 92 milliliters of that blue liquid. And then they went and got a third one and they added that in, and that was 225 milliliters. And so we saw the total in the big cylinder before they poured any out, and it was 567. And then they started pouring out to the fill line in the flask, and they poured out 500. So if we have 567 to start and we pour out 500, well, we're going to be left with 67 milliliters. Does your answer match with that one shown in the video? If it does, awesome. Celebrate. And if it doesn't, take a moment and go back and think to yourself, okay, well, where did I get off track? Where did I miss something? And see if you can go back and fix your mistakes. I hope you guys enjoyed this math story in 3 acts. Bye, everybody.